Hi, this is Dr. Kurt Woeller for Integrative Medicine Academy. The title of this video is Secondary Hyperoxaluria and High Oxalic Acid Absorption. So one of the things with regards to secondary hyperoxaluria that separates that which would be primary hyperoxaluria is primary hyperoxaluria is more of a genetic type of problem where there is either development or the lack of ability to properly metabolize oxalates. In secondary hyperoxaluria, which is much more common, we can really, the leading cause would be increased dietary consumption from our foods. We can also produce oxalate in the digestive tract from fungus. So Candida can produce it, so can certain molds like Aspergillus. And then we can have increased digestive absorption. So Candida, for example, produces an enzyme called isocitrate lyase. And what this does is it takes isocitrate from its Krebs cycle and then produces glyoxalate, which then becomes oxalate. So glyoxalate in us through lactate dehydrogenase takes that compound and produces oxalic acid. Now, Aspergillus can also produce oxalate as well. And what they found actually in a lot of autistic kids, when they look at their oxalate levels, they've found at least about a third of them tend to have oxalate, or what's also called oxalic acid levels, above 90, and that actually is consistent with genetic hyperoxaluria, except they don't have the genetic markers. And then oftentimes the autistic condition worsens with high oxalate, or it's often associated with just increased underlying problems of Candida. So in this particular case, arabinose is a compound that is produced by invasive Candida that often has a strong correlation to high oxalate as well. Now, what's also interesting is that there are transporting mechanisms for oxalate that occur in the digestive system as well as in the kidneys. So this can explain why some people may be holding on to oxalate as well, whether it's absorbed or whether produced internally within the body. And so a lot of this information actually comes out of the world of urology. But in this particular paper, they were looking at this particular transporting mechanism called SLC26A6. This is an anion exchanger mechanism that occurs in the kidneys. It also occurs in the digestive tract, so this particular one within the duodenum, and also within the pancreas. And the key point is that it acts as a co-transporter in many regards, in that we're reabsorbing oxalate and getting rid of sulfate. So one of the key concepts of that is essentially for every oxalic acid molecule that we retain, we lose a molecule of sulfate. And that's pretty significant because sulfate is really important for the mucosal lining of our digestive system, for detoxification and phase 2 liver pathways. Plays a huge role throughout our body in various ways. So when we lose sulfate, that's a problem. So a lot of times people who have high oxalic acid levels will have low sulfate and poor detoxification status. One of the other interesting things is another mechanism called the NADC1. And what this does is this helps with sodium and citrate absorption. And that transfer can actually help get rid of oxalates. So essentially, and this is one of the reasons why calcium citrate is used so often in high oxalate conditions, is not only is the calcium beneficial to bind to the oxalic acid, so calcium being a cation with a 2+ charge, oxalate being an anion with a -2 charge. So dissociated calcium citrate in the digestive tract will bind to the oxalate in the gut, create the crystal or salt of calcium oxalate in the gut where it doesn't get absorbed and then it's released in the stool. But the citrate that also dissociates complexes with this sodium DC1 mechanism, and that in itself allows for citrate absorption at the same time for internal oxalate markers to be expressed into the lumen of the digestive system. So there's these interesting mechanisms that are involved in attempts to get rid of oxalate. One of the other things that can lead to secondary hyperoxaluria is just, again, increased absorption. So we know that Candida can produce oxalate. And if we have calcium or free calcium present, it's available to bind to the oxalate. And so we can form that calcium oxalate crystal in the digestive tract. It doesn't get absorbed and it's eliminated in the stool. Now, one of the things that will compromise that mechanism is the inability or lack of digestion of fat. So fatty acids that carry a negative charge can bind with the calcium in the digestive tract and leave less free calcium available to bind with the oxalates. So now all of a sudden we've got the oxalates that can't find a partner to bind with, and so they get absorbed. So fatty acid digestive problems will cause a fatty acid calcium complex, prevent the calcium from binding with oxalate, and allow for more free oxalate to get absorbed into the body. So when we're thinking of a low oxalate program, it's not only important to have people on low oxalate foods as much as possible, but we're also using calcium magnesium citrate to help bind the oxalate in the digestive tract. And then also, if necessary, you can work on digestion overall, digestive enzymes, particularly fat digestion, to help improve fatty acid absorption so that we leave more calcium available to bind the oxalates in the digestive tract. If there is an underlying fungal problem, whether it's Candida or Aspergillus, well, that can also be treated, whether it's through botanicals or certain medications like nystatin or oral amphotericin B would be appropriate for just overgrowth scenarios in the digestive tract secondary to these fungal organisms. We get into this topic and many others with regards to the organic acid test, which is the best test to help analyze for oxalic acid elevations, in our advanced oat mastery course through Integrative Medicine Academy. So this is a very in-depth course that goes through all the different markers on the organic acids test. So you can get more information at advancedoatmastery.com. If you are a healthcare practitioner and you'd like to have some one-on-one interaction with myself, Dr. Woeller, my partner, Dr. Trencatella, we have a website called Functional Medicine Clinical Rounds where you can schedule one-on-one lab consults to go over lab testing. We can talk about cases. We can clinically troubleshoot scenarios. We also have a lot of educational material within the functionalmedicineclinicalrounds.com membership website. If you are interested in any of our courses through Integrative Medicine Academy, you can go to integrativemedicineacademy.com or you can email us at integrativemedicineacademy@gmail.com. Again, I'm Dr. Kurt Woeller for Integrative Medicine Academy. Thank you.